a little top takeaway sheet for you guys to have as a takeaway. So keep an eye out for that to come through. At the end, we are going to have a survey for you to complete. So, we want to know how we did. And if there's anything we can improve upon, it's kind of, helping us help you know what you want to see from future hacker hours. So please take a minute to complete the survey. It helps us improve what we do here. And everybody that completes the survey gets entered into a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. So you might have a chance to win, which is a little bit of a exciting incentive there. Another quick note, the hacker hour is interactive. Like I said, we don't have slides. It's a little less structured today. It's going to be more interview style, conversational, and we want you to be part of the conversation. So if at any point you have any questions or comments and things you want to add, feel free to drop that in the chat. We will take the time to answer those. We love responding to questions live. That is kind of the point of having this hacker hour here with you. And so let's get right into it. We have a really exciting topic to talk about this month, and I am joined by an expert in the field. Today is all about SIEM, and we are joined by Michael here. He's the president of Infotex. Welcome, Michael. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Michael, do you want to go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and why you're our subject matter expert today on SIEM?
Sure. So my name is Michael Harkey. I've been with Infotex for almost 18 years now. Infotex is a cybersecurity company based out of Lafayette, Indiana. We work primarily with financial institutions and other regulated industries. And the reason I think Amanda asked me to be here today is because we are on our third version of our proprietary SIEM. I'm sorry, I called it a SIEM, Amanda. I can't help it. Uh,
Oh, a little controversy already.
I know, right? I know, right? Well, like we like to say, we don't know where the E went, but but yeah. So we're on our third version of our proprietary SIEM that we've developed. Um, and I was the primary architect of our second version and a major contributor to our first. And now we're in our third. I was essentially the architect for the start of the project, but now we have a great team of several people, not just me, that are working on that on TriGuard, which is our SIEM.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much for sharing. You've got a lot of hands-on experience developing and iterating Sims over a long span of time. So a wealth of knowledge for us today.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. But we do have one poll question for you guys today, just one right off the top, because we want to get a feel for who is in the audience. So if you would please participate and answer our poll, that would be great. It's going to help us guide the conversation today and see where we're going to go. So our poll for today is, what is your current SIM situation? Our answers are self-hosted with an internal SOC. We have a co-managed SIM or SIEM, if Michael would prefer it. So maybe you have somebody that, you both manage your SIM together. We outsource our SIM and SOC functions fully to our MSP or MSSP. They take care of it for us. They send us the escalations and alerts. We don't really look at it. We don't really touch it. They update rules for us. Or we don't have a SIM in place at all. Or what is a SIM? I've never heard of this thing. Is that well, the way that I say it is that, the game that we used to play with the people with the little green diamonds on their head, that Sims game. So
There you go.
could be a
Another
range here.
reason. Another
Yeah,
reason not to call it a sim.
yeah, true. Yeah. Well, I guess if it's a seam, it could be a seam in your pants.
I'm sorry, was there a question there? So yeah, a little bit about what a SIEM is. Oh, okay. Okay, we
All
got our
right.
answers. There we go.
Awesome. All right. The results are in. We've got a pretty even blend for the most part. We see the most sticking out, 39%. We outsource our SIM and SOC functions fully to our MSP, MSSP. That doesn't necessarily surprise me. A lot of my clients are in that space, so I can see that. But then otherwise, it's pretty balanced. 22% have a co-managed SIM solution, 14% self-host with an internal SOC, which is honestly a little bit higher than I was expecting to see from the audience.
Same.
No SIM in place, 8 out of 72, so 11% there. And then what is a SIM? 14%. So we're kind of all over the place. So I think this conversation should be pretty interesting. I think we can go everywhere with the questions that we had lined up for today. So yeah, Michael, I guess for those with us today who aren't really sure what we're talking about, if you want to give a little basic, simple language, what is a SIM?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be nice and call it a sim. So a sim is essentially we like to call it a place because we the way we see it because we do this for our clients, we do threat hunting, we monitor and manage it. So we really like to see it as a place that is gathered around. But to be a little more technical and a little less hokey about it, it's really where we're putting all of our security events into one place, right? Firewalls, servers, endpoints, and it really tells the story across all of them. Um, so we can find out where those problems are in minutes rather than our next quarterly review, for example.
Yep, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's security information and event management is what that beautiful acronym is there, our SIEM
I,
acronym,
I,
right?
I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. Laying a little bit of the groundwork. I hope that's helpful to understand a little bit more. Maybe I guess to elaborate a little further, could you maybe tell a little bit about the difference for someone who maybe would understand what an EDR solution is versus having a SIM in a SOC? Like what the difference there kind of looks like?
Yeah, so I mean we can really start getting into cutting hairs at some point, but an EDR solution by itself is really, an advanced antivirus style system. And so it's going to be generating logs that somebody you want somebody to look at. So already you need a SIEM to be able to view that. Now where it gets even more gray and confusing is uh, MDR, managed detection, and XDR, extended detection and response. And it really starts to blur the lines there, especially with extended. I mean, you could even maybe call our product an XDR as well, because we do have MDR, EDR baked into it as fully. But the main difference is that EDR doesn't collect any, it's not doing what this the SIEM is doing. It's not collecting data. It's not correlating data. It's really just doing the function of managing, securely managing those endpoints and letting somebody know or shutting it down or whatever the policies are in place. MDR kind of makes it a little bit, it gets it a little bit closer because at least you have a SOC or somebody there watching, but still you're not putting all that data in one place that where you can correlate and pivot and see where like things are happening or follow the flow of a user, that kind of thing. And then XDR gets slightly closer, but typically XDRs can only take in certain types of data. So a lot of XDR platforms, and really it's because of the platforms they were built on themselves. So it's like, you have a firewall vendor, you have a firewall platform, and then you bring in those MDR, EDR logs into that. So it's kind of a step to a SIEM, not a full SIEM. A SIEM really is meant to be the place where everything comes. So you can see the story, you can view, you can watch a user travel through your network, you can watch a user touch your disparate systems, whatever it may be. It has all that information, not just from the few that you can get it from.
Yeah, so kind of some of the main differences there is the context that it gets from being able to ingest all of that other information that runs parallel to it. The context helps drive some of that alerting, right? It's kind of some of the difference there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, one of the marketing things that we put out for today's Hacker Hour, the line word for word, I have it here actually, collecting more data than ever, as we mentioned, part of it is having all of that context. So it does inherently just collect more data than an average tool in our security stack, right? So collecting more data than ever, but struggling to turn it into intelligence. So why would you say that that gap is so common right now? Why do you think that we're seeing that a lot in this space?
I think it's we have a little change in the way we're viewing things right now. So for years it's been for us it's been a fight to get our clients to put everything, our banks to put everything, our institute, our organizations put everything in. So it was a fight, 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 and then you kind of get to the point where, okay, well, after you get through that fight, what's important? What's
Hmm.
actually important that you're bringing in? And I don't know if anybody on this call, I'm assuming some have actually viewed log files and parse these things with your in plain text with your eyeballs. It's already very verbose, and there's a lot of information there to begin with. So when you're on my side of the fence, you want as much intelligence as you can get. You want as much context as you can get. But when you're when that's kind of your motto or your through line, it's easy to have too much information. It's easy to send data to the seam that's not going to help. That, maybe provide some contextual data, but are we leaving out this giant gaping hole over here because we're not getting some other piece of your infrastructure because, your file server is way too loud, for example. So it's really I think we're struggling with it because there's just a lot of information, right? And there's a lot of
Yeah.
complexity now. You have fintechs, your APIs, you have AI. There's just a lot of data. There's a lot moving around. And so really, I think the focus needs to be now on getting the right data into the same.
Yep. So kind of sounds like, we started in a place where it was really like pulling teeth to get people to input different log files into their SIM, right? And
And
there's,
and not only to their fault. A lot of times it was the vendors,
yeah,
whatever it may
the
be.
file type might not have been compatible, or they wouldn't be able to give them the access into that information. But now you're saying, well, after that, we've kind of maybe gone the other way a little bit too far on the other side of the spectrum where we're taking everything in, and for different reasons, it might be bogging us down. Like maybe it makes things slower without benefit, or it's more costly to ingest these logs without any, material benefit. So kind of swung a little bit too far the other way,
Yeah,
right?
the pendulum does do that sometimes, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, when you're fighting so hard just to get data in that you feel you need, I think it's easy to lose that context of what data do we need.
Yeah. Awesome. So I kind of want to do a little bit of a step back and take a look back at SIM because today's topic is the future of SIM in 2026. And I think to talk about the future and today, we got to take a look at the past, right? So I guess what would you say have been, I mean, and you've done three iterations of your own SIM that you've developed now, right? And so in the past like decade or so, what would you say have been the biggest changes and updates in the SIEM space?
Oh, a lot. So in the beginning it was that was the other piece too. We had to be selective about what you sent to the seam as well because we didn't have the large data processing that we do now, right? So you had these tiny MySQL databases, and you're pushing millions of rows and lines through. It was just super cumbersome and slow. So with big data tactics gave us the ability to get instant access to information, to ingest information almost instantly and to retrieve that information almost instantly. So I think that goes back to the what we were talking about a minute ago, why we were like, all right, just bring it
Yep.
all.
Yep.
Um, but that's been one of the biggest changes is that we can take in more information, we can add more context, we can pivot faster, everything's quicker. I would say up until the beginning of this year, maybe, I can't remember when it started, maybe late last year, that price was going down because storage was going down. But we're kind of seeing, because of AI right now, we're kind of seeing um, the opposite effect there. So that's kind of one of these because we're
Yeah.
in one direction and now we're not. But obviously AI, um, different levels of use, whether it be Copilot, where it's helping us make decisions, or where it's agentic and it's making its own decisions.
Yep.
Um, and then, just my personal feeling is it's just a lot prettier now.
Yeah.
You
Easier on
know?
the eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all easier on the eyes. You got
Yeah.
nicer graphs and they do things instantly for you. And the older systems, It was really, sitting around and waiting and building reports and waiting for them to generate as it did go through those, half a billion logs a month uh,
Yeah.
that we ingest for our clients.
Yeah, and a bit easier on the eyes for non-technical folks to have a visual understanding of what they're actually looking at instead of looking at this tool and nodding their head.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, you said it much nicer than I would say. Which I
Yeah.
would have said the board likes to see the pretty grass.
Yeah, yeah, it makes it helpful. And that's not everybody needs to be a sim or a SIEM expert, right?
You
That's
can
what
say
you're here
sim, it's
for.
fine. It's you can say sim. It's all right.
Okay.
I can't because it's not my brain, but you feel free to say it. That's all right.
We'll see. Maybe I'll go back and forth. I'll maybe land on something at the end. Cool. Well, I guess in your space with your clients, is there a size where you see a bank usually grows to, or an institution where they say, EDR, MDR, XDR, it's not cutting it for us anymore at this size. We know that it's time that we need to, we need to make the upgrade. We need to invest in a SIM. At what kind of size threshold do you usually see people come your way?
So I think that's a little harder for me to answer because of our clients being in regulated industries, because
Hmm.
it's pretty much needed out of the box. I mean,
Yep.
we have a client, one location, a bank in Texas. They need a SIEM. I mean, they need it more than a bank 10 times their size because they have two IT people, and the whole, out of the 12 people that work for the bank to one, I think one of them's truly IT, the other one's non-technical, and so they need a partner like us, and they need a software, a product like a SIEM to be able to give them that critical information.
Yeah. So it's
So,
not
I mean,
necessarily a size. It's like
no, I
you
would
might need
say
the
if
help.
anything, it's complexity. I would
Yeah.
say it's complexity. And because of the regulated industries that we work in, they're complex.
Yeah.
We don't have simple flat networks, right? We don't have simple flat infrastructures. They're very complex networks and infrastructure. So I think more than size, complexity would be what I would look at.
Yep. And I guess, as time goes on, things are just inherently getting more complex because the perimeter of your bank is expanding. It's not just all inside anymore. It's in your vendor environment. And if you leverage AI, and if you have an MSP who comes in remotely to manage your environment, there's so many different ways that what you need to have governance on is either a little bit more out of your control and becomes more complex, like you're saying. So not necessarily just the size, but how complicated things are internally.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, I guess kind of moving on, I kind of want to talk about log management. We're talking about um, one of the biggest changes in the past decade being the ability to process all of this data in a way that you just couldn't before,
Mhm.
which opens our arms for more logs. And I guess to put it really simply for anybody who maybe doesn't know what a log is, could you maybe explain what a log is? Because I know we keep saying that, and maybe if somebody's confused out there,
So a log is so you have a tree and then you cut. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah,
So what we're mainly talking about today are security events, security logs. We like to call them events for some reason, maybe because this log just sounds weird when you say it over and over. But everything that we do on a system generate, hopefully, if the system is, secure, if it's developed like that, which, most of the systems that we're using today are, they have the ability to output information about what they're doing. Whether they're taking action or they've stopped an action or somebody logged in. I mean, as simple as somebody logged in, as simple as a computer started.
yeah,
Every action is almost every action. In a lot of cases, every action is being logged somewhere. And then you have to get that, you're either going to look at those logs on that system itself directly, or you need to get that to some place like a SIEM where you can put it with all a bunch of other information and see, oh, mHarkey is touching all this stuff. So we can see from the logs from the file server, we can see from the logs from the email, we can see from the logs from the domain controller, and sending us all that critical information.
Yep. So user logged in at this time, they logged out at this time, maybe their session timed out. Somebody, an admin created a new user or, a new group or, all of these different actions. They make a log. And these are all of the things that goes into your SIM.
Right. And sometimes those logs are it's really interesting because it just depends on the product and the service and what it's doing for you. A lot of times it's just really purely informational. Like a log itself's not really going to tell a picture. And that's where SIEM comes in, right? So user logging in, you see a log, that user logged in. So what? But that user logged in 5 times with the wrong password before they got incorrect. That creates a new story, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Um, but that's just the data in the log itself. Sometimes, depending on the system, it's actually going to feed you what you need to do. So, like for example, like a firewall that has an IPS IDS intrusion. I'm sorry, I get crazy with acronyms sometimes. So,
It's
intrusion,
hard not to. It's
it's
hard
so
not to.
hard. It's so hard.
They just flow out. Yep.
Intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems. Like, a lot of firewall platforms have that baked in now. So if your firewall is sending a log that says, "Hey, there's this, we saw this traffic, we blocked it," or this bad actor is connecting to you, that's a very different type of log than Michael Harkey logging in.
Yep.
So it's really just the way that we get pertinent information, typically in this context, security information to one place so we can threat hunt on it, generate reports, whatever we need to do with it.
Yep. Yep. So just anything that kind of comes out of a tool when it comes up. It looks like we had a question come in the chat
Let's do it.
from Ethan. So we rely almost entirely on our MSP. Would you suggest any of the SIM event data come to the bank, or is it too overwhelming?
Oh, it's too overwhelming. So what we do is, so not event data, but you want summaries. You want actionable information from that event data. So no, you don't need event 4624, which I can't believe I still remember that. I believe that's a login. That's an account login in Windows. You don't need to see those, but you need the context that, you know, it happened or that 20 of them happened, or it happened at 3 a.m., or it happened whatever. So that's really where working with a managed provider or your own SIEM or whatever to build out those detections and reporting and notifications. So no, I don't want 1,000 logs telling me about a login activity on my account. I want a summary of that. Um, and that's one of the benefits of a SIEM.
Yeah, and not even getting all of that information to you because it's overwhelming. But what you can maybe do is talk to the person who's managing that environment and make sure that you both have an understanding of what you want to come your way and what triggers and what rules should be flagged up to you and how urgently they should be flagged up to you. And if they have the ability to quarantine a system on your behalf, what is acceptable there and what is maybe not acceptable. Is it 5 failed logged ins or 10 that you want to be alerted and maybe over phone or email or if it's more urgent, right? So that's the conversation that I think somebody could have with their MSP, right? Talking about what sets of criteria is maybe unique to their environment that would be an indication of something to be alerted on and what channel you would prefer to be alerted on and how fast, I mean, depending on your contract, but what you should expect from them for a response time. Would you agree with that too, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to add something to it, and I just lost it. Shoot. Um, yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree
Yeah,
with that. Yeah.
awesome. It looks like we had another one come
Yeah.
through. This might not be a question actually. Our system's very complex and interactive. I get weekly summaries in PDF form I present to our IT steering committee monthly. Yep, that's something we see a lot. Just um, the high level summary of the event data for things that maybe you didn't need to get flagged all the way up to you, right? Um, it's a
Yeah.
great example.
Yep.
All right, talking a little bit more about log management. So we kind of discussed, on one end, we were struggling to get things to come in, maybe due to vendor limitations or type limitations or otherwise. And now maybe we have too much coming in. from a log ingestion perspective. What would you say is that kind of sweet spot? What would you tell our audience today to help filter out what maybe they don't need to be putting into their SIM?
I would say start with detections. Okay, so don't have an ingestion if there's not a detection for it. Ask yourself with every single device that you want to send to the SIEM, when are we going to look at this? What, will we log in this to look at these logs today? And what do we need to see? And I think that really builds out your matrix or whatever you want to call it as to what you want to send. Um, we again, you have so much data coming in, so and you can hold a lot, but you also can't very quickly query a lot.
Hmm.
So you have these hot and cold nodes, for example. So you put the important stuff in your hot node, you can get to it very quickly. And then if you need to keep your data for 1, 2, 3 years, you put that in cold nodes.
Yep.
But your retrieval time's a lot higher. Um, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Well, I'm going to move us along a little bit to talk about everybody's favorite topic these days, AI, and how that's impacting the SIM. So I guess start us off by telling us what you're seeing with, you know, more data that is now being generated because of AI and how that is affecting SIM platforms, what you're seeing there.
So AI is really affecting from two sides. One, it's making the attacks easier for the attackers. So they're able to say, hey, AI, do this piece, and they go out and do it. And they can hit many more, many more attack vectors. So, that is impacting us quite a bit because we also need to be quick on our end. I think the mean time has dropped from 2.5 weeks to detect to like 2 days or to infiltrate. So it's getting we have to be very quick on it. So that's where AI helps us also helps us. It helps our analysts make quicker decisions. It helps our we don't use agentic currently. We do use AI to help our data security analysts make the best possible decisions quickly. I do see potentially like we still feel that gray matter has to be involved. It's very important. You're taking risk. Sometimes we're taking risk uh, upon our clients or on our clients' behalf by not telling them or by investigating it further or threat hunting on it further. So, and then actually there's three ways. If I said two, there's three. And then like you alluded to is the third. How do we monitor this? How do we get the information? Shadow IT, shadow AI. How do we keep our people from, taking pictures of, PII and putting it directly in Copilot or, some spreadsheet with account numbers or whatever it may be. Um, so yeah, and it's another data point that we're seeing. At this point we're like we're at early seam stages at this point, right? So we're like we need to monitor everything because we don't know. We're monitoring queries that are given, prompts that are given. We're monitoring access to the APIs. We're monitoring network traffic to those AI data centers. And almost all of that is just to say, hey, your people are using AI, and is this
Hmm.
okay?
Yep.
Or have you approved Copilot? Have you approved whatever it may be? Because they're using it. So obviously it is adding to the data issue, and again has the same problem that we had 10 years ago, 15 years ago, which is let's bring it all in because we don't know
Yeah.
exactly what's important yet.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different threats, like you say, coming along with AI. I like to think about it as four kind of main like quadrants. Um, AI threats on accident, AI intentional threats, human AI threats on accident, and human intentional AI threats, right? So either hallucination or poisoning in your AI, all of that also is going to get fed into your SIM. How users are prompting their AI is going to get fed into your SIM. Maybe somebody's
Wait,
accident, yeah.
we also can't forget Skynet, where AI is just doing it all.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true.
So we're
And I
not
think
there
you said
yet.
those were the three sides of AI in the SIM space, but I'm going to challenge you with a fourth
Cool.
to talk about the AI SOC. I feel like I've heard a lot about AI SOCs recently. What's your take there? What would you what do you got to say about AI SOCs? I guess just
So I think it's a layer at this point. I think that if anybody feels confident enough to let AI make those decisions for them, I would suggest that they talk to somebody for a little bit because we're just not there. But it's a great layer. It's a great layer to have. It's a great, complementary layer to help make those decisions faster, assess that risk quicker, threat hunt. Threat hunting's hard. Because if you have one person doing for example, you have one data security analyst threat hunting, right? And
very
so they're
manual.
following a threat. They're following rabbit holes, and some of them lead to dead ends. But they're focusing on that one thing. So imagine if you can have the force multiplier of having 30 threat hunters that are out there looking for the threats. So it it's a layer in my opinion, and I think that uh, I don't trust it to make any final decisions at this point.
So you would maybe encourage people in our audience to consider it as an additional layer to maybe help speed or reduce some manual processes on maybe an internal SOC, or if you're leveraging an outsourced SOC to help with some of that manual things. And in the same way, you would have a conversation with your MSP about what your expectations are on reporting. You would have conversations with whoever your AI SOC provider is on what you're comfortable with. Is that
Yeah,
what you would say?
yeah, I think you work with them direct, exactly how you would work with somebody like us, and that would be,
Yep.
sit
A
down and say,
co-managed
hey,
provider.
this is what we care about, this is what we don't care about, um, and use that layer to your advantage. But I'd be remiss. I'm, maybe I'm just paranoid, but I would not let it make decisions for me at this point.
Yeah. And I think that's very fair. Especially as it is so new, the concept of the AI SOC, and there's so many AI SOC vendors. Um,
Well, the thing that bothers me about AI, this just turned into an AI talk, but the thing that bothers me about AI is that it bothers me that I can't get it to replicate the same thing over and over again. That really bothers me because to me, if one plus one equals two, then it always equals two. But with most LLMs, it's like three, five, nine, 12, whatever it wants to be today. And that's just incredibly frustrating.
yeah. Yeah. And so like
Um,
would you would say the sim space where it's very like it's down to the T. Like when you're adjusting this log data, it's very precise. The rules that you set up for alerting, they're very precise. It's not up to interpretation. It's not very flexible. And so maybe just the automation capabilities that a SIM can already provide, or maybe feel a little safer than an AI SOC making decisions that aren't so concrete. Is that kind of what you're saying with the one plus one equals two thing there a little bit?
A bit, a bit. I mean, I still think there's a place. I do, but I just don't think it should be making decisions. I think that it's a force multiplier.
Yeah.
It can if we give it the correct guardrails, then it can get us to our destination quicker. But without very stringent guardrails, it's scary.
No. This isn't something that I wrote down to ask you, but just in having this conversation, I'm thinking, the conversation we had about maybe ingesting too many logs and considering, trimming down what logs we're ingesting just based off of the ROI. Like, is it going to provide us value for the cost? Would you maybe say that in addition, as a solution to that log volume, that AI SOC would help with that issue as well?
Um, Maybe, maybe I could see because some of the things that our DSAs also do is help us with thresholding and
Mhm.
limiting and filtering. So I could see having specific like filtering, guardrailed AI agents that are really helping us kind of figure out, okay, what is important. We got a million logs from this device, and 20 of them were actionable. Yeah, that I think that really is a place where machine learning and AI can help out. Just really perusing through a ton of data and giving you actionable information quickly. I
I
think
see what
that's
you're
fun.
saying. So a little bit. It's
A
just,
little bit. A
yeah,
little
a little bit.
bit.
Well, kind of on the same vein there about um, continuing our fun conversation on our chopping the tree logs. What would you recommend that the people in our audience here, and people like your clients, how can they go about ensuring that the logs that they're storing with a co-managed SIM provider or SIM provider like you guys or somebody else, if they're relying on you for data retention or log retention for compliance requirements, and like you said, you have those hot and cold nodes because you might not need to access data, but you might need to retain it for compliance or regulatory reasons.
Mhm.
What should you be providing to them to show them that that's what's going on? I guess what questions should they be asking you to verify that you are helping them meet their compliance requirements? And what can you be able to show to a client to give them peace of mind there?
Oh, well, peace of mind. I mean, for us, we have a lot of, so we're in the TSP, FFIC TSP examination program. So, we have a lot of backing to kind of show that, that we're doing it the right way.
Yep.
Um, but um I would say that I think it's really going back to detection again. Or, what can you link those? Uh, Let me back up. Let me back up and say test. That's it. Test. I think that's the best way to do it. Whether it be a purple team test, whether it be you literally say, "Hey, Infotex, I want a report for the every time M Harkey logged in for the last year." That's one way you can test the data retention. Um, don't just take them at their word. We have dashboards or whatever that show our retention, but test. And I think that goes for a lot of kind of figuring out what is missing too. Yeah, that's a great way to kind of find those holes and those gaps in your coverage. You do a really good purple team test, and maybe you don't have those detections that you needed mapped to the MITRE framework, for example.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think testing is huge. I think we you can say, hey, obviously we want authentication. Obviously we want remote access in and out of we want to see VPN access and all that kind of stuff. But that's all great. But at the end of the day, it's got to go back to a detection.
Yep.
And those are two great, I think, examples. If we're watching external connections, remote connections into your network, that in itself is already kind of elevated. And then you just add a little bit of context to that. Is it 3 a.m.? Did they fail 10 times before they got in successfully? Is this normal? That's another place AI, I think, can help, is really with that user behavioral analysis and say,
Mhm.
is this normal? Is this normal for Michael Arkey to be logging in at 3 o'clock? By the way, it is. But, but is it normal for Amanda to be logging in at 3 a.m.? Maybe not.
No, it's not.
That's not. All right. So yeah, so flag that for the AI, the AI there that Amanda might be doing something weird might be happening with Amanda's account.
Yeah, or an impossible event where you're on opposite sides of the world logging in at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
But
awesome.
kind of, and but to speak a little more about data and like where it lives and all that kind of stuff. So we are kind of getting into a new phase with SIEMs, and that is they want to kind of defederate the data. And so you'll have data lakes. And then what you'll have is you'll have SIEMs that just connect to those data lakes. Um, And that's how people are trying to kind of get around the expense of the large amounts of volume, the ability to change providers. That's I think that might be a little pie in the sky at the moment because you still have to integrate with that data lake. So it's not
Yeah.
like you're going to be able to turn off Infotext and turn on somebody else. You know, there's going to have to be work to be done in between those. But it's really exciting, I think, because I mean, I was excited when we got to big data, you know, where we are now, where we can ingest a billion events in a month and actually do something with it. That was exciting. But the idea of having a data lake where you could have where it doesn't matter anymore. You can send well, it matters because it costs money, but it's colder storage, blah blah blah. It's not tied to security exactly, which again brings up another problem. How secure is it? But you can kind of do the send everything to it, and then your SIEM can use its detections to kind of figure out what's important from that.
Awesome.
The negative thing about those data lakes is latency. They haven't we haven't quite figured out how to not have the latency to it go into the data lake first, and then you know how do you take real time action on something that was 10 minutes ago because I had to go to a data lake and then I had to come to a SIEM. So it's it's kind of bifurcated right now. So there's
Hmm.
like a data lake, and then there's a kind of traditional SIEM is like the real time right now, and the data lake's like, okay, we might need this for compliance later,
Yep.
and let's store that in the data lake.
Awesome. That was great, and you kind of beat me to the punch there a little bit. I see a question in the chat that I want to get to in a moment, but I want to touch something that you said before about um, when we were talking about retention and the testing, like you mentioned. So a good way that someone in our audience can verify that that data is still being retained is either visibility, like you said, you guys have dashboards where you can see into it. You should be able to expect to ask for a test from either a co-managed provider or your MSP, or for the people who are here who are hosting it internally, maybe recommending doing your own internal testing and querying, maybe, I don't know, annually or something to see are you able to get into that data, right?
Yeah, which I know is a little bit harder for some vendors. And I don't, you know, I feel like now that I say this for the third time, I feel like I'm trying to be salesy. I'm really not. Um, but yeah, we don't. I know sometimes people are kind of locked out and they only get like one user, or their MSP has that user into their dashboards and they have to like get with them or whatever. You know, that's unfortunate. But like you said, if you do have that access to get directly into your systems, and hopefully you do, then yeah, you can get your own eyeballs on it and, you know, go look to see how far back that data goes. Um, and just verify that that retention is there. Again, you know, if a provider is in a program like we are or something, they probably have attestation showing,
Yeah,
documentation and showing exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. But if you're just not sure, and yeah, that would be a really easy way to kind of test your retention.
awesome. Awesome. Before we get back into where the place of data lakes and the more decoupled, architecture here, I want to answer this question here from Lindsay. She asked, how many employees do you recommend having on staff to self-host a SIM successfully versus having an MSP do it for you? And I'm going to add on to Lindsay's question here. And maybe an intermediary step of moving to a co-managed provider. Would you say that that's like a fair half step? So maybe from fully outsourced, you're just getting the alerts, then to co-manage where maybe you have a little more visibility and it's a little bit more combined all the way to a self-hosting situation.
Yeah. So, to answer the original question, that's kind of hard because it really just depends on the experience level of the people that you're staffing. And I mean, you know, we staff 2 to 3 experts in our 9 to 5 hour. 24, we're 24 by 7. So then we go into one person for each shift after that. Obviously, most of the information, most of the issues are going to happen during the day. Most of the data comes through during the day, a lot more threat hunting at night. So it's really hard to say, you know, 9 or 2, or, you know, if you're a $500 million size, you know, whatever, then this X, Y, Z. So I apologize for not being able to give you kind of a hard number there. Um, uh, but that's all our people do. They're literally just watching our clients' networks. That's their full-time job. They're threat hunting. They're investigating, they're, taking calls, they're on the SOC. Um, uh, and then you move into obviously ours is a code managed solution. Um, we like to say that we're an extension of your IT department. So, if you have problems, you have issues, not like, the computer's not booting, but, if you're having security concerns, you have vulnerability assessments, you're concerned about, you have gaps, we come in, we see ourselves as a part of your team to help you fill those gaps. Maybe it's extra monitoring or whatever it is. I think, I'm extremely biased, but I think our model is really good because you don't have to have a huge IT staff. You just have to have a small, good IT staff that communicates well, and that, is covering everything on that or on the organization side and directly interfacing with you. Um, I I think the hardest part for a bank to have their own SOC is that 24 by 7. How do you ask your people? It's hard for me to ask my people to work on Christmas and 3 a.m. all night long. It's so that's probably the hardest thing. And then of course, if you don't have the built-in expertise, then you can throw a seam up and throw things at it, and it's not actually doing anything until it's got detections and you have experienced people that are looking and threat hunting on it. Um, so yeah, I I know that some of the bigger financial institutions do have internal SOCs, and I know they have quite a staff to staff those SOCs. And I still don't know what they do sometimes on the weekends and holidays.
Or holidays or
Yeah,
yeah.
it's rough.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense. And you apologize for saying I don't have a set number, but I think that's actually the most realistic thing is that it's unique to who you are, as is most things in this space, right? Especially since tale as old as time, if you're in IT at a bank, you're likely are wearing multiple hats to some extent. If you're on the IT security, like maybe part of your job is also BSA or vendor management or something else, and you're already busy. So if you have a lot of people or maybe an amount of people that you would maybe deem be enough to have an internal SOC, but they're also busy doing other things, or like you say, they don't have the technical expertise to, be able to either, work in the tool, make the correlations, do the threat hunting, look into it, then it doesn't matter maybe how large you are.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because there's a huge difference between an IT person and a security expert. They obviously share a lot in common, but the thought process is completely different. So an IT expert thinks, how can I fix this problem? Security professional thinks, what am I not seeing? Where is the
Mhm.
problem? How can I connect these dots? So it's just kind of a different frame of thought, and it's not something that comes naturally to everybody either. So where I feel like, I mean, I can't count on my hands and toes how many times I've met IT professionals in the banking financial institution spaces that have little to no technical background. They were just really good at whatever job they had, and somebody said, "Well, we can trust you in this position," because trust is such a important part of technology,
Yep.
and that layer there. Um, so yeah, I don't know if I got to my point or not.
I think you did. I think we answered the question there.
Okay, good.
How many people we need? It
Yeah.
depends. Depends on who you are, how big you are, how
Yes.
the resources of your internal team. I'm gonna try to squeeze in a couple more questions for you before we wrap up today, because I did want to ask you more about that kind of, federated SIEM environment with the data lake, but then I also wanted to talk to you a little bit more about some rule tuning advice. So I guess first up on that federated SIM situation. So we talked about data lake and the pros and cons a little bit, right? You can send more there. It's this kind of intermediary space where it might be a little bit easier to change a provider potentially and not be locked in, depending on the cost of switching. It might be cheaper to have the data lake. It's something to consider from a resource perspective and a compliance perspective. I also wanted to throw in the mix what you thought about SOAR. We're seeing a lot about SOAR these days too. Now, where does that kind of fit in the mix there? And would you recommend adding that piece in that layer as well?
Let me work backwards.
Sure.
So SOAR definitely, I mean, it's SOAR is a name for something that we've kind of been doing at Infotex forever, and it's
Okay.
really just automating as much as you can to give your people more time to find the threats that are real. And so what everybody wants SOAR to be is a silver bullet. They want it to go fix it, remediate it. Okay, we have this problem. All right, SOAR will handle it. It's done. Shut down the firewall or whatever. Can it do it? Yes, it can. I would not recommend starting there. I'd recommend finding the things that your SOC is doing over and over and over again, repetitively, that has the same result over and over again. I would start there. Automate those things that do free up your analyst time and your time to go and dig and threat hunt and really see um, see the important stuff. So yeah, I think it does have a place. Um,
Like if you have a mature program, maybe you internally host your own SIM or something, and you're ready to take that next step, is that a place that you would recommend it then?
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you're already there, if you've already automated everything, then yeah, let's start talking about automating responses.
Yep.
What's yeah, because you already have your arms around all those things that were creating noise. So now that the noise has been reduced, then let's start, actually taking action on the actionable things that are left.
Yep. And to break down another acronym, again, I'm bad about it all the time, just throwing acronyms out. SOAR I actually don't know the full, it's security, orchestration, automation, response.
What is R actually?
I know what the
I'm not
R is, but
sure.
I know it's orchestration and automation. Essentially, to your
Yeah,
point, what you were saying,
I think
it
it's
kind of
response.
puts some of the pieces of the puzzle together. I almost think about it sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is almost like a Zapier to the sim where it can connect to other things for you.
It can.
It's a good analogy, almost like the Zapier of a security tool there.
Yeah, no, it definitely can. Um, it can also live within too and do some of the, busy work as well. But yeah, that is SOAR. That is what we want SOAR to be ultimately, is something that can reach out and say, okay, well, we have this, we've identified this attack on the port of your, port 12 of your firewall. We're just going to reach out to the firewall UI interface and we're just going to take that down or disable that IP address or whatever, disable a user. It's really kind of taking that next step to respond to the incident and not just alert.
Yep. Awesome. Well, again, keeping an eye on time, I'm going to ask you two more questions before we close out today.
Okay.
And one of them is on rule tuning, like I mentioned. Is there any rules that you have maybe as a baseline as you onboard a new customer or that you just hear about in the space that are commonly overlooked that you would recommend that people either add into their own internally hosted SIM or they talk to their co-managed provider about or their MSP about rule tuning things that are maybe potentially often overlooked that shouldn't be?
And that's hard because it is kind of a, case by case basis. Uh, I'd say that the vector that's usually missed today, and it's getting way better, is the cloud layer. Whether that be Azure 365 or some EDR API cloud connection, could be fintech solution. The scary thing about things like the Azure 365 is that it's a whole nother fully functional environment there, so somebody can create an account there and live there. But we're getting better at that. I think that's something that most people are bringing in now. But really, I think a lot of people kind of forget about those cloud layers, or they are relying on the security of those cloud layers themselves. And that's not always uh, sometimes it's okay. I'm not saying that's bad, but what if that's part of the attack chain? What
Yep.
if it started with the cloud, or what if it's ending with the cloud, or what if it made lateral movement in the cloud and you don't have any visibility into it? Another one I'd say, and this one's kind of a double-edged sword, is object access auditing. So that's when your system is actually going to generate a log anytime that's a process, a system, a user touches a file. It's super noisy, but uh, a lot of times that's where we're at when we're trying to figure out, well, where'd this file go? Is this, how did this get deleted? Or, are we compromised? Where a lot of times we're kind of missing the file layer. But it's also so noisy that we don't like to bring it in either because it's just, more noise that we have to figure out how to filter out.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, so that's what, again, it just kind of depends on your environment. What I'd like to say about the object access auditing, what I like to recommend to our people is find very critical, high risk areas of your network, of your file infrastructure, whatever you want to call it, and monitor those, like HR, accounting, stuff like that. And then, really target it and focus the object access auditing on those really critical directories and files you have in your environment.
That makes sense. So part of reducing the noise, we're recognizing how important it is to ingest, these logs produced from the files, right? But also maybe we don't need all of the files. They're not all as important to ingest those logs in, right? So maybe having that classification and understanding what's the most important to ingest there. All right,
Yep.
we see one more questions come in. Do SIM logs need to be air gapped? If yes, does a cloud-based SIEM platform fulfill this requirement?
I can't think of a guidance or anything that specifically calls out air gapping logs. I mean, it is your data. Um, yeah, I'm not sure about, I'm not sure how to answer that question because I, I, I don't see the concern, on air gapped, I guess. Um, but yeah, if you are attempting to air gap, then you wouldn't be accomplishing it with a cloud SIM because you have to have that connection. There's no gap there. But yeah, I can't think off the top of my head why they would need to be air gapped. But no, you cannot get there with a cloud-based theme.
Yeah, I can't say it's something that I've never heard of or seen this question before. So that's kind of interesting. Your very last question before I kind of close this out here, I promised I only had one more for you,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's a
fine.
short
That's fine.
one.
I'm here as long
Um,
as you need me.
awesome. Well, in one sentence or two, to keep it short, but also see where you're coming from. What is maybe one of the biggest misconceptions about SIM that you just wish people would understand, or just something in general that you wish more people would understand about SIM that don't, in one
Oh
of
my
your
gosh.
sentences?
You said keep it short. That's rough.
I know.
Probably the biggest is people think it's to set it and forget it. I mean, even when you work with somebody like us, we're doing interview style setup and tuning meetings, and there's no set it and forget it. Also, thinking you can set it and never touch it again.
Yep.
No, your infrastructure changes. You have to make changes. Health, watching the health of the system. A lot of times, clients will change their network or change something fundamentally about their network, and they don't think of how that impacts the same, and it creates unintentional blind spots, sometimes very, very vast blind spots. Um,
That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think I hit on my most annoying pet peeve.
I liked it. I love it. And that's something that comes up for me all the time. You're not just setting up the sim once and that you did it, now we're done. It's a continual thing. It's evolving with you and as your environment changes. So
Yeah, and
awesome.
it's not a system that you put in just it's going to automatically work. I mean, it kind of does. There's default detections and stuff, right? But it's not going to work for you unless you work it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Michael. I'm going to kind of close this out here. Just a little bit of a quick reminder for everyone. SBS is hosting our very own inaugural cyber and AI conference this year. So the very first one, it's called Converge. We have about 23 sessions already planned out and a full lineup of speakers. How to register, it's on our website, sbscyber.com. We've got some cool people from inside at SBS and then a bunch of other cool industry speakers that will be there. So
Yes, I look
please
forward
check
to
it
hearing.
out. Yep, yep. We love to see you guys there. For being here today on our Hacker Hour, you're eligible for a $100 discount off if you use the coupon code CLIENT100, all caps, CLIENT100. But you have to sign that before July 1st. So very important. Got a couple, maybe got a week
Yeah.
ish. So, yep, love to check it out and see you guys there. Your next Hacker Hour will be at Wednesday, July 29th, and it will not be with me. It will be hosted by SBS's Brett Rock, and the topic is Your Information Security Program is Working. Thank you so much again for attending today's Hacker Hour. Don't forget to complete the survey at the end of the webinar. You might get a $50 Amazon gift card. So,
Buys
why
a
not?
lot.
All
We
right.
buy everything on Amazon.
And anything, literally anything. Yeah. Michael, thanks so much for joining us today. You had so many incredible insights for everyone here. And I think something to take away from everyone on the spectrum that we saw in the poll at the beginning as well. So thank you
Yeah,
so
no
much for your
problem. Thank you
time.
so much for having me, and it was an absolute pleasure. And look forward to doing it again.
Awesome. All
Take
right.
care.
Well, have a good one, everyone. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, everyone. Take care.